A minute, I know what we're doing. I'm slightly in awe here. I'm joined in the studio by one of the most important conservation heroes in Britain, according to BBC's Wildlife magazine. He appears on the Wildlife Power List alongside Sir David Attenborough, Dr. Jane Goodall and Chris Packham, as one of the people that the magazines believe will have the biggest impact on wildlife over the next decade. He is 13-year-old Jake McGowan Lowe from Braco in Perthshire, and he's sitting over there beside me now. Hi Jake, how are you?
I'm good, Kate. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And Dad Nick's here as well. Hi Nick.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you too. You've been collecting animal bones since you were 6. Now got one of the largest collections in the UK. You've got your own website. You've published your own book called Jake's Bones. I mean, it's incredible. Where'd you find all the time, Jake, for that?
I try to devote a couple hours a week just to bones, like with the website or going out on walks.
Right. So how did it start then?
I was 6 when I found my first skull when I was out walking on the hills with my dad, and I wanted to find out what the skull was from. So I took it home, found out it was from a rabbit, and that made me wonder what other bones were like in the countryside waiting to be found.
Right. And so from there, how did it all develop?
After that, I tried to go on a walk at least once a week to either find bones or watch wildlife, and it's just kind of snowballed from there.
Right. So what's the fascination?
I just love bones because every single one is unique.
Yeah. I mean, Nick, it must have been really interesting for you to see this interest develop in Jake as a very young boy. I mean, he's 13 now, but I mean, at 6 and 7 and 8, often kids have, fads and they go, well, certainly I'm thinking of my own children, they're this one week, this the next week, and, they don't often have that kind of single-mindedness.
I think it's great that Jake has developed an interest in the countryside. I mean, he has 2 younger brothers who are 5 and 3, and we take them out into the countryside as well. And there's always, if you take your children out into the countryside, there's always something that they'll latch on to, which they'll find interesting. For Sam, who's age 5, he'll be interested in the sort of exploring aspect of it and going into new woods. Harry, the youngest, who's 3, loves picking up pine cones or feathers or anything that's pretty to bring home for his mum. So with Jake, it just happened to be bones, to be something that got him interested in wildlife, and it's developed further than we could possibly have imagined.
Yeah, I mean, do you have to kind of monitor the time that he spends on it? I mean, 2 hours actually doesn't seem so bad considering how much he has achieved.
It could take up a lot of his time because he gets a lot of emails from around the world, and I think about once a week we have to sort of sit down and sort of work through those and all his messages. And it was actually more time consuming when he was writing his book as well, which was sort of an 18-month process of fitting in all of that around his schoolwork as well.
Right. So what's the book all about, Jake?
It's all about different kind of bones, like from modern kind of bones from like deer to dinosaur bones.
And what sort of information do you tell people about bones? I mean, someone like me might look at a bone and think, it's a bone, and I won't get much further than that.
It's like size to tell what kind of animal it's from and what bone it is.
Right. So it's not just that, I mean, you now have a very extensive collection. How many do you have?
I think it's around 3,000.
Right. Where do you keep those?
I keep them all in my room.
Oh, really? That must be nice.
Yes, that's a big hit, as you can imagine. It's sort of been it's accumulated, and we've never yet found the point to say we think you've got too many now.
Yeah. But it's more than a collection. That you've actually made a study of them, which I think is the most impressive part of it all. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're able to sort of impart your knowledge to other people through your website and obviously through the book as well. Is it not a wee bit morbid?
It's not morbid at all. It's about studying the animal when it was alive. It tells 2 stories, the bones do. It's the story of how that animal lived its life, whether it died old or young, or it had any accidents, and also how that one individual species has evolved over millions and millions of years.
Have you haven't brought any in, have you?
Yeah, I've got some.
Oh, good. Actually, and I should just say, for anyone out there who is on Periscope, we are actually live streaming this at the moment, so you can see Jake and his dad Nick, and here's some bones that have brought out. Wow, now I need to be very careful with this. Right, Jake, tell me, gosh, that is fantastic, isn't it? I mean, that is beautifully preserved. I mean, actually, you describe it for me, Jake.
It looks a bit like a badger or a cat, but it's not. It's from an otter. It's got the eyes and the nose are at the very top of the head for when it swims, and it's got very, very powerful jaws like a badger. But I have to have a special licence from the Scottish Natural Heritage to keep that.
Right. Well, why is that? Because it's an otter?
Yes, because it's a European protected species.
Right. So when you found this animal, presumably it was, well, I don't mean roadkill, but I mean, you had to strip it of its fur and, to get to the bones.
Yeah.
And who do you do that, or does?
I get help from Dad.
Right, okay, so that's your job, Nick.
Sort
Good
of.
news.
The easy way is if you leave, nature is much better at cleaning bones than humans are generally. So anything that's been left in the wild for a few months will by itself get stripped down by sort of flies and ants and all sorts of other animals.
Right, so you go out and you look for animals that have met a natural end, yeah?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, so like you wouldn't shoot an animal in order to get its bones?
No, never.
No, no, I didn't think you did, but I'm just curious about the whole kind of process of it. I mean, this is actually a very beautiful thing, this skull, actually. I mean, and I asked you that question, is it morbid? And when I see it like this, I can totally see your fascination. Nick, how does it feel to have a 13-year-old son who's on the wildlife power list? I mean, clearly destined for great things.
It seems a little strange. I mean, both his mother and I are extremely proud of Jake, but actually for different reasons than what you'd think. I mean, he got his book deal, I think, just before he turned 11, and obviously he's been doing his website and so on, and he's done quite a lot over the years. But actually, what I'm most proud of is something that probably a lot of parents will relate to, in that Jake is someone who wants to pull on his boots at 6 o'clock in the morning and go out and explore, go out and find wildlife and go to do that. And there are a lot of children around the UK doing just that, going out, exploring nature, finding it for themselves, and they are the next generation of naturalists.
And does it tend to be young people that are in contact with you, Jake? I know you write a blog which goes up on your website and you have lots of contact from around the world. Does it tend to be people your own age or a variety?
Well, it's not just young people, but it's also like experts like Ben Garrett and Chris Packham.
So why would they contact you?
Just to like ask me about bones, ask me to identify bones.
Wow. So I mean, you're generally recognised as an expert in this field.
Yeah.
He's very modest. I mean, I'll let you answer that question, Nick, rather than Jake. It's not fair to put it on him.
We did. We had I think Chris first found out about you through your website on that, and certainly Ben Garrett, who did the series, the BBC series Secrets of Bones, got in touch with Jake because of that. But also, I mean, I remember you getting an email some years ago from a sort of world-class pathologist who was looking for a particular type of animal bone, and the only place you could find it on the internet was actually on your website. And it was great where someone of that caliber is getting in touch with a 13-year-old and helping them with the hobby and their study.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know at still 13, you're young, but I mean, are your thoughts beginning to turn to sort of a professional life and what you might like to do? Would you like to work in this field?
Yes, definitely. I want to be a archaeozoologist.
An archaeozoologist?
Yeah.
Which will involve what?
It's just someone who works with animal bones.
Right, okay. And I believe there's been a job offer already, is that right?
Yeah, there was. It was a couple of years ago when a professor in America was looking for a certain kind of bone, and I had it on my website. And she said that when I'm 18, if I want to work in a lab, just to give her a call.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you will get many, many other offers like that. I mean, Nick, just from a parenting point of view, I suppose, you've got 3 children and they've all got their own interests, but when you've got one with such a passion and has, been recognised in this way at such a young age, Is it an issue to sort of just keep a balance between the kids, you know?
I love all my children equally, regardless of whether they have book deals. They'll all find their own way in life. They'll all find things that interest them. Hopefully, they'll all be interested in nature in some way. There's lots of nature out there. We live in a fantastic country. So anything that they can take with them that'll be an interest into an adulthood, you know, is a win, I think. For Jake, it's obviously developed beyond that, which is fantastic. I've really enjoyed encouraging him.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. And, you know, I'm not in any way suggesting that you would have a favourite based on that. But I guess it's just time, and children can often be quite competitive. And if there's one in the family that is a bit of a shining star, certainly from my experience, you have to kind of build up the other ones as well, especially when they're younger.
It's true. There's enough of a gap at the moment that Jake can go off and do his own exploring in the woods, and you know, myself and Sam and Harry will do slightly different routes and look for different things. But at the end of the day, they're all out in the countryside. They're all, you know, finding things that are fascinating for them and finding them for the first time.
Yeah, and you've obviously got a huge interest as well.
I have, but I don't think I'd ever picked up a bone until Jake became interested in them. So I didn't come from it from any special knowledge. When I was Jake's age, I did used to do lots of walks. I used to go out hiking in the countryside, and that's a kind of love that sort of came back to me in adulthood. And Jake's given me a great opportunity to go out and do that.
And you'll have learned from him.
Absolutely. You know, it's been fascinating sort of being with Jake on the journey. I'm not an expert at all on wildlife, and like Jake, I think we've learned at the same speed.
Yeah. So any particular projects coming up, Jake?
I'm trying to... Well, I know in a wood that I've got my trail camera in, I know there's a badger set, so I'm trying to find the badger, but I haven't really found it so far.
Right, okay. You want to get down to Easterhouse, because apparently they have got the largest concentration of water voles in the United Kingdom, we learned today. So maybe your dad could take you a wee detour there before you head back to Perthshire. And he quickly looked across there. I think you might be going to Easterhouse next.
I think I might, yes.
John in Hillhead has texted and says there's a church in the central Czech Republic called the Bone Chapel. Jake would love it. So there you go. If your dad's taking you abroad, you might want to check that out. Jake, thanks very much for joining us this morning. I really appreciate it. What is your website?
Jake's Bones.
Jake's Bones.
It's jakes-bones.com.
jakes-bones.com. Well, I highly recommend that anyone who's got an interest logs onto that. And I will wait for you to come and collect this little skull here, because I do not want to be responsible for in any way damaging it. But there it is, it's sitting there, and it's quite something. And that was up in Periscope, wasn't it? And I think you can actually tape Periscope, so we will record that and get it up on our Facebook page so that you can see this skull here and see Jake and Nick as well. Thank you very much for coming in, really appreciate it.
Get it on.